Great. Let's get started. Your first task will be converting an implementation of the try data structure from Java to Python. And you will do this one with the AI support. Your second task will be converting an implementation of the priority queue data structure from Java to Python, and you will do that one without the AI support. We'll also take a break between the two tasks, and the session is, well, like you know, will take about 2 hours to finish. First, let me tell you a bit more about the code translation task. The task is to produce a complete and working Python translation within 30 minutes. By complete, I mean that all of the functionality and documentation from the Java code should be translated. And by working, I mean that the Python code should be tested for correctness. But as I mentioned earlier, there's more work to do to accomplish an absolutely perfect translation than what can be done within the 30 minutes. So really, I'm asking you to just do as much as you can in the time that you have. But there may be trade-offs in how you spend your time, such as whether you choose to translate all of the functionality first or to translate a portion of it while testing it to make sure it works. How you navigate this trade-off is completely up to you. There are a few other things I should mention about this task. The first is that you will be using an online version of VS Code editor in this study, which has a few minor differences from the desktop application, but in general, all of the menu commands and keystrokes are available and should just work. But please do let me know if you encounter any difficulties. Number two is that I won't be able to answer any technical questions about the code or what it is supposed to do, but I can tell you that the Java implementation is completely correct. When you make the translation, please try to preserve the naming of class and method names, but we are less concerned with how you name variables. Also, you can use whatever resource, and this is what you were asking, whatever resources you feel would be helpful, such as searching the web or Stack Overflow or running any of the code, since we have installed Java and Python in the editor. I will give you a 5 minutes warning when the time is almost up, so you know when to start wrapping up your work. We also ask that as you work on the tasks, you think out loud and tell us what you're thinking and what you're doing. This helps us understand how you approach the task and what you're thinking about as you do it. I remind you to keep thinking out loud if you're quiet for too long. So, any other questions before we begin?
Nope, sounds good.
Okay, great. First of all, I will ask you to share your screen so I can see what you're doing. I'm gonna share a link with you shortly so you can start. We can start the task itself. Great, awesome. So let's start. So in this first task, you will be translating, like I said, the try data structure from Java to Python with the help of an AI code translation system. This system is able to automatically translate code from Java to Python, but it's not a perfect system. So the translated code may contain errors in it. We use this system ahead of time to create 5 separate Python translations for you, which you will see when you open the editor. How you use these translations to help you complete the task is entirely up to you. So I'm going to share the link to you in the chat. This. So like I mentioned, you will see the five separate translations in the 5 files that I'll call try AI -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the translations. The source is in the try.java file, and we will please put your solutions in the try.py file. Okay?
All right.
Let's go then.
All right, thanks. I guess first off, I'll look at what we're supposed to look at, the try Java. At this point, I'm just reading the Java docs.
I have two monitors. You might see me moving, looking back and forth. Please, if you feel distracted, let me know. But I'm taking notes on one monitor. I'm looking at
Oh,
the other monitor for what
yep.
you're doing.
Yeah, no worries. Same here. So, um, and there's no unit tests or anything like that for the Java file, right?
No,
It's
they're
just
not.
okay. And take a look and see what the AI wrote up. How do I how how do I open up a command window in this version of VS Code?
You can do see the hamburger menu on the top left.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay.
There's the menu. So you have the terminal here. There you go.
Okay. Thanks. Don't think it had a man. So I can just immediately use to test it. Is it okay to modify this file, the Java file, or should I
It
just write
is.
my own?
I mean, it is okay if you want to modify it.
I just want to kind of come up with like a test strategy or something so I can see if I can replicate it between the two. So it looks like there's a bug in the first one. I think at least that's what this is looking like. Um, This might be my lack of Python 3 knowledge, but this doesn't look familiar to me. I might look that up in a minute, but I want to see what it's supposed to do.
Sorry to bother you, but what are you trying to do right now?
I'm trying to understand exactly what it's doing, and then trying to figure out here what it's doing wrong. Um, and also in the back of my head, I'm thinking, what is that even proper syntax um, for Python? I know you can do for loops, but this almost seems like a Java lambda, and I'm not familiar with that, and at least not looking like this in Python. Um, so I see here, it basically creates it's like a hash map, and each the key to each hash map is the letter in the word. Um, and over here, there's a dictionary, and this is I'm not sure what default here is either. I'm going to try some of the old syntax and see if that works for me, but Got past that problem anyway. Let's see. I'm just gonna look up real quick how to get the list of keys from a Python dictionary in Python 3. I've never actually run a Python debugger, so bear with me on this, I guess. Doesn't look like it actually inserted.
This is the 5 minutes warning.
Okay. Is that time?
No, no, you have a couple more minutes. I was just wondering what you were doing.
Sure. I'm lost on the pointers here because I thought that in Python this would assign root as a pointer to current, and I'm looking in the debugger and I can see that it's inserting this tree node into the dictionary up here for current, but it's not for root, but yet it should be the same here. Current, I mean, it should be, I should be modifying, it should be the same pointer. Um, so I guess I'm a little lost on Python programming here. But that's I don't think that's the AI's bad. I think that's my bad. Um,
Okay, now we have reached the end.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you that you close this window.
Sure.
Probably stop the debugger if you can. Well, I think that would stop the debugger.
Okay.
That's fine. No worries. No worries. Um, I'm going to share a survey on the chat
Okay.
so that you can answer.
You want that answered on the screen too, right? For sure.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Your ID, participant ID is P. That's in participant 25. The condition would be AI, and data structure would be a try. And you have to agree to the privacy policy and click next. As in the coding task, I would ask you to think aloud while you read and answer the questions.
Sure. How mentally demanding was the task? Um, it was probably more demanding for me because of the lack of Python knowledge. I'll really shoot somewhere up here, 17 and 18. How hurried or rushed? Um, I guess I felt the expectations were kind of low, so I wasn't expecting to finish it. So I didn't, I wasn't very too much rushed on. So a little bit under average there. How successful? Probably not very successful at all.
Please keep in mind that if you see the lowest is the perfect and the highest is
Oh,
failure.
thank you. Yeah. So good, good catch. Um, how hard did you have to work? Um, I don't know. I probably somewhere towards the average. How insecure, discouraged, irritated, stressed, or annoyed? Not much. Um, is that good? Move on to the next one.
That's great. Yeah. When you finish, just click next. That's fine.
Okay. Describe your overall approach for how you worked on the task and how you allocated the time across different activities. I guess I tried to find a working case for the Java side and replicate that on the Python side. Um, my plan, if I would have been more successful, would have been to go back and add more tests, but to what extent did you feel I understood the Java implementation? I would say somewhat. Um, why? I don't know. I didn't examine the code that thoroughly, and again, that was probably more the pace because of the time limit of it. How would you characterize the quality of the provided translations? Um, I, I'm gonna give it a poor grade, but I'll probably qualify it by saying I didn't look into all five of them. Um, let's see why, because it it didn't work. Even the basic scenario that I was shooting for. But um, How did the quality of the translations match your expectations of what could be produced? Um, I mean, it looked pretty good. I would say it was better than I expected. To what extent did you feel provided translations were useful? Uh, what extent did I feel the translations had errors? Helped you complete the task? Not so much. Understand the original Java code? Um, not so much. Taught something new about Python. Um, so yeah, I'll say somewhat. The set default was something I hadn't known about in hash maps. Um, did you feel that the provided translations made you work in this task difficult or versus easy? I will probably just go and just say right in the middle. I think on the one hand, it did make it easier because it had everything kind of charted out for me. Um, on the other hand, I think I kind of spent too much time with it trying to figure out what was wrong with it as opposed to I guess I mean maybe we'll find out more in the next exercise, but I wonder if I would have just started from scratch, how much backtracking and digging to figure out what was wrong I would have done. Um, because at least if I would have started from scratch and done it all myself, I probably would have had at least the knowledge of how I implemented it and would have been able to go back easier and figure out what I had done wrong. Um, do you feel the provided translations made your work in this task slow versus fast? Kind of the same thing. I think it probably sped up development overall. I don't know. I'd probably give it a 1 or a 2. Um, provided translations made your work in this task of the worst or best quality. Um, oh, yeah, I'd probably give this one a not applicable since I didn't get even a simple working case working. Um, uh, most useful was all the boilerplate code was done. Least useful was errors in the implementation and figuring and the time spent figuring those out. Do you have a comment there?
No, I'm not. I'm a loud sire, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I'm very sorry. I don't want to. I don't mean to distract you, but it's just the
No,
way I breathe.
no worries, no worries. Uh, were enough translations provided for you? I think it was probably too many, at least for half an hour. Uh, provided alongside the translations to make them more useful to you. Well, I'm not sure about that one on number 22. I don't know what additional information would have helped more. To what extent would AI-supported code translation be helpful? Um, so this is probably closer to normal working conditions. I think it was probably slightly helpful. Under time pressure, yeah, it's probably about the same. I mean, it does make some things easier. I think now that I've done this once before, I'd probably do things different the next time around. Um, it's probably more helpful when working alone than if you're working with a team. You could ask a teammate, "Hey, what is this supposed to do?" Is it when working on code that only I would use? That's probably when it says code that I would use, is it saying code that like that only I would maintain, or is it talking about where I'm the only user of it?
I would say that you would use and maintain both, like the only
Okay.
user or some, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess if there's more people taking an eye at it, it's probably more useful. Um, yeah, it's probably more helpful on the experimental prototype stuff, probably less useful on the production code. As far as teams go, I don't know that it makes a huge difference between 3 and 5 versus more than 10. For which situations would AI supported code translation be appropriate? Mission critical stuff. I mean, some of this stuff, I'd say it's just fine to use it because as long as you get the work done and get it tested, I think that's the mission critical stuff would be the testing side of things. I suppose if you're doing AI to do the tests and you're not verifying it, that's a process problem more than a development problem. But, so I'll say it's just appropriate. Um, One-time performance is important. Um, I guess I'll say it's moderately just because if you get to a point where you're relying on the AI and you don't look at performance, that's where you're more than likely going to find those performance issues. It might be functional, but it's a large code base, so that's an ideal situation. Original code is written in a language with which I am unfamiliar. Um, yeah, so that's the opposite of this case for me. Yeah, be useful there. Yeah, I mean, you'd still have to look at it, but you'd have it's probably going to depend on how well it's documented. I suppose. And code needs to be translated to a language with which I'm unfamiliar. That's what this case is. Say again, it's very appropriate. Um, AI models be for real code translation work. Is this saying that the AI, what the AI is generating is going to cause me to, for example, fix one line per problem or one problem per line? Is that what that's saying? Okay.
Yeah, it's basically the amount of problems you have to fix varies in the amount of like the rate of
Yeah.
errors that you have to
Yeah.
fix.
So if I have to fix a problem with every line, I mean that's clearly not useful, right? But one every 100,000, that's hugely useful. Um, so I think it's kind of like where it's like the curve, right? Where I wouldn't even want to fix 1 per 10. So probably something like that would be my curve. Um, Not really. I think between what I've covered vocally, I don't think I have anything else to document here. So I'll go ahead and submit that.
Okay, great. Then that's the first part. I'd say we take 5 minutes, probably take a glass of water or something, and we can continue after those 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. let's reconvene at. Well, what time is it? What time is it where you are?
It's 1:23 right now.
Okay. Okay, it's 3:23 where I am, so 23 is okay. 28, we reconvene. Okay,
Sounds good.
great. I'm gonna pause the recording, but please don't leave, so we have continuity in the recording afterwards. Okay,
Yep, for
awesome.
sure.
Yeah, see you in 5 minutes. Okay, moving on to task number 2. In this task, you will be translating the priority queue data structure from Java to Python, and you would do this one without the AI support. So I'm going to send you another link to the editor. There you go. You have the Java source and the priority queue.py is where you should be coding your solution. Okay?
All right.
Okay. Starting now.
All right. Thanks. So I just try to get some of the preliminary stuff out of the way here first. So this is just kind of so I don't have to keep switching back and forth. here too. So when I gotta reorient myself to what this is doing. So it looks like it's basically one big array, and then it starts at the end of the array, works its way back, and um, so it's gonna so it puts the item in at the end of the array, but it actually like I guess doesn't check that index or wait a minute. Oh, it does. It's using the length. Um, and then it takes the previous entry, divides it by 2 to get the parent index. And then pulls that object out and compares it with this one. And that's where I'm confused as the comparator because there is um, I'm not sure how how it makes this distinction comparator. But if it's below 0, then it's gonna switch the 2. I think it's basically that's the priority. Um, yeah, I'm definitely still confused there. Um, Start out kind of the same way I did the last one. You don't know an easy way to just like outdent, do you? Other than
Yes, select all.
okay.
And if you do Shift tab, it should dedent.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. Thank you.
5 minutes warning, Andy.
Thanks. Sorry, I realize I'm not talking all that much. But yeah, I'm just trying to build up my test case kind of on the Java side, and then see if I can get it to work the same over here on the Python side. Um,
Mhm.
I'm also looking at sort of the I guess the easier cases um, than the harder ones. Um, so like I kind of ran into an issue with the figuring out how to basically how to do the comparison between the two strings, and then how to basically prioritize the queue. But I'm kind of deferring that to the end because I can get as much of the rest of the functionality done um, without too much work. And so far my tests are looking about the same. Size peak is empty on the right.
And we're done.
All right.
Yep. Time flies, right?
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thanks, and please close this editor window for me, if you can. Thank
Okay.
you.
And I don't have a
Um,
debugger running.
no, that's fine. I'm sure that closing the window will definitely kill the debugging with it. Okay, I'm gonna send you another link to another survey,
Okay.
which is a little bit shorter than the one that we did before.
Okay. And P25.
Your P25 indeed. This is no AI, priority queue.
Okay. How mentally demanding? I think, I mean, other than the one issue that I didn't resolve, this one was a lot easier. I think it's probably go somewhere towards the middle here. How hurried or rushed, same as before, which I think I said 8 or 9. How successful were you? I I think it was a little bit more successful. Uh, Certainly not all the way. How hard did you have to work to accomplish? Um, Again, this is probably not too hard. How insecure, discouraged, irritated, stressed, annoyed? No, not. Um, so the overall approach, um, so kind of similar to the last. Uh, um, I guess I tried to understand the basics of the Java code. Uh, Write some tests, um, then implement the Python side and verify that the tests ran the same. To what extent did you feel you understand how the Java implementation of the data structure works? Um, I'll say a great deal. Only because it doesn't say understood completely. I definitely didn't understand it completely, but I understood it a lot better than I did in the previous one. Um, uh, and I'll just kind of mention that the comparison. And, um, I guess I mean this may come up in a future and in the next survey, but I mean this is like the stuff where I spent some time with stuff that I think the AI could have helped with as far as the generating the boilerplate and that kind of stuff. So I had to do that and then had to look up how to do that, and that's where I think the AI would have really helped. Try to mention that here. That's it for that one.
Awesome. There's the last survey, which is shorter than this one. We're almost done.
All right. P25 again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, how would you compare your experience working with a translation task without AI support versus with AI support? So, um, yeah, the AI definitely helps with the boilerplate stuff. The method signatures, I guess I'll call them, class signatures, that kind of stuff. So all that stuff was was great. Um, the downside was that when the AI generated the code, um, it took longer to debug. So I wasn't familiar with it. What kinds of AI support would you desire for working with code? Um, I don't know. I've you know in the IDE itself, I think there could be uh, some benefits uh, by being smarter about what methods it's going to auto suggest. You could probably use AI to build some of the unit tests that I was working on too. Guess that's it.
Okay, you made it. You made it till the end. Thanks a lot, Andy, for participating. We cannot stress enough our appreciation. And as a token of our appreciation, we're going to be sending you 250 blue points shortly. So thanks a
Yeah.
lot. Um, as the last thing, I would like to just in 3 or 4 minutes tell you about what we're doing in our research team, because it has to do with the study that we're conducting right now. Because at this point there are a lot of AI models that are being developed for code, right? Like translating from one language to another, or generating documentation, or even generating code from natural language specification. You probably heard of those things. And but there hasn't been much work to evaluate if these models, actually what they produce, are useful for software engineers or not, right? So we're trying, and we're interested in understanding whether AI produced code translations are actually helpful for you? If I mean, do they make your work easier or faster? Or and another important question is about how good does the translation need to be for it to be useful? So that's the foundation of what we're trying to study. Um, and we're also building some tools for VS Code. That's why we run our study in VS Code to actually interact with this with the translation models and such, and allow you to work with the code as you're trying to translate from one language to another.
Yeah.
So yep, go ahead.
See, I could see some benefit of that even within the same language. Just like we have all these migration guides and stuff, right? If they've coded their APIs to version 1 and we're moving up, we make version 2 available, that kind of coding translation I think would be very useful to have AI be able to help users move up, right?
Yeah, like modernize even if in the same language.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's something that has actually come up in another with another participants as well. Um, so again, Andy, thank you very much for participating. And it took less than the 2 hours than I expected, but I guess that sometimes the service take longer to complete and stuff. So the 2 hours were necessary. That's why when you reached out to me, I prefer to err on the safe side and have the 2 hours with you, so we don't rush things. Okay.
Yeah, that was nice. Appreciate that.
Okay. No worries. No worries. Again, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at any moment. And have a good rest of the day.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. Bye, Andy.
Bye.